Welcome back to The Real Story. So just last week, Missouri Congressman Bob Onder, a doctor, parent, and fierce defender of children, dropped the Chloe Cole Act, a bombshell bill to slam the brakes on chemical castrations and surgical mutilations of minors, all happening under the guise of what many people in the legacy media call gender-affirming care. This isn't abstract either. At just the age of 13 years old, Chloe Cole was funneled into puberty blockers, testosterone shots, and a double mastectomy by the age of 15, only to detransition at 16, scarred for life, and now suing the people who profited off of her pain and confusion. And her heartbreaking case is just one of hundreds, if not thousands. In fact, reports show over 4,000 U.S. minors endured these irreversible horrors from the years 2016 to 2020 alone, with regret rates being unknown. While some claim it is somewhere between 1 and 80%, although frankly it could be even higher, as experts warn that's just the tip of the iceberg, as they see people who detransition like Chloe emerge almost every single day. The legislation is now picking up steam in Washington, with Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn supporting it in the Senate, defining sex as biology, not fantasy, while also empowering victims to sue and extending statutes for justice. Because the principle, do no harm in medicine, shouldn't be optional. And we firmly believe that to be true as well. Now, only time will tell if this bill ultimately passes. However, two very special guests at the center of this ongoing effort are here to discuss it. So here with us now is the man himself, Missouri Representative Bob Onder, who represents the state's 3rd Congressional District, and Chloe Cole, a detransitioned public speaker and activist. Thank you both for being here today. I sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So,
Thank you for having me again.
Absolutely, Chloe. It's great to see you. And just thank you for all the work that you're doing in this country. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But I want to start with you, Representative. So I see this bill as just a good faith effort to bring back sanity, to bring back reason to this country, and to restore medical ethics in America. But I want to ask you what specifically inspired you to propose this legislation?
Well, yeah, I think what really inspired me is, as you mentioned, I am a physician, and this has got to be one of the most, if not the most, egregious examples of medical malpractice in U.S. history. And I would further add, it is an example of incredible exploitation of vulnerable children. Many children who identify as a different gender, a different sex, are suffering from sometimes just the turbulence of adolescence and puberty, but other times depression or anxiety or autism disorder, or are victims of abuse. And yet, what I call the gender industrial complex exploit these children and tell them all their problems will be better if they only transition to the opposite sex. And I think it's malpractice, it's exploitation, it's profit over the good of patients. And as a physician, as a father, I just could not take it anymore. So we need to pass the Chloe Cole Act, and I'm really honored that Chloe is going to work with us on this, lend her name to this effort to once and for all end the exploitation and malpractice on vulnerable children.
So let's talk about the medical establishment just for a moment that you're alluding to.
Yes.
A lot of people out there are wondering, how could medical doctors be going along with this when it seems to really just defy common sense? So what do you make of the root cause here of the problem? Is it ideology? Is it politics? Or is it maybe the money behind this industry?
Well, I think it's all three of those. I think gender ideology has been around for a long time, and there's political benefit because the LGBT movement is politically powerful. But I think this is very different than those who identify as same-sex attracted, gay or lesbian, because this really involves preying on young children who are suffering from many times difficulties with their mental health, difficulties adjusting to puberty or adolescence. And so, unfortunately, Chloe's story is not rare. In just the 4 years ending in 2023, 14,000 children in the United States have undergone puberty blockers or cross sex hormones, and 5,700 children have undergone some sort of surgical procedure. This is just medical malpractice on an enormous scale, and that was 2023. It's probably a lot higher numbers now. So what the Chloe Cole Act would do is to ban these horrible procedures and then allow the victims, both the children and their families, to recover damages for the harm that was done to them.
Wow, that's really powerful. I so appreciate that very much. And the thing that really sticks out to me is, in some cases, there's damage that's been done that seems to be irreversible. I'm glad we get a step toward justice, but I really want people to just let that sink in for a moment. Sometimes the life-altering damage that is done that you just can't undo. It's heartbreaking, Congressman.
Well, and one lie that gets told by the gender industry to these children and their parents is that puberty blockers are just a pause to allow the child and their family to work things out and think through what their gender really is. But in reality, in 100% of cases, the plan is to then transition from puberty blockers to wrong sex hormones, which unfortunately can render the patient permanently infertile, as well as a lot of other complications: osteoporosis, bone pain, certain brain tumors. So this is just medical experimentation on our children on an enormous scale. And England, as well as Sweden, Norway, Finland, have all reconsidered and essentially banned these practices. It's time for the United States to get with the program and do the same thing.
Completely agreed. It is barbaric and just so corrupt in my mind, sir. Then pivoting to you, Chloe, as someone who's been a victim of this system, how important is it for you to see this kind of a bill be proposed, and what are you hoping to see come from it?
I think that this bill is one of the most important actions going forward in the fight against this radical ideology. I've had the pleasure of being able to use my experience and the testimony that of what my mom and dad and I went through in many states across the country and even abroad to stop this permanently. But unfortunately, there are many more states that are moving forward in the opposite direction, doubling down on the abuse that is happening in our institutions and in our governments. And I think that it's going to take federal action attacking the gender ideology movement on every single front to take it down. And it's such an honor that I have that this bill has been named after me, and it really honors the experience that I've been through and that thousands of other children have been through, and to have that recognition means everything to me, really.
I completely believe that. Thank you, by the way, for even joining us today to discuss this. But as far as federal action goes, what do you think it's really going to take to combat this, as you put it, ideology?
I think it's going to take every single federal organization that can get involved getting involved, and there's even organizations getting involved that I could never have even dreamed of, like the FTC investigating the abuses of these practices in these hospitals. And it's going to take not just investigations, but legislation that will not only ban these treatments across the board for children, but also address what happens afterward for these children, for these young people who have been harmed. This bill is going to allow for patients who have already been harmed to seek the treatment that they need, as well as seek the legal justice that they need, because in a lot of states, the statute of limitations is just so short I'm a lucky case in that I filed my lawsuit basically as soon as I turned 18. But many of my friends have had their cases dropped, and I mean, I even had a friend named Layla who had a much more horrific experience than I did. They started experimenting on her medically when she was 12. They removed her breasts at 13.
Wow.
And even though what happened to her was so obviously disgusting and cruel, her case was dropped. She would have been expected to sue at 15 years old. But this bill allows for those of us who have been harmed very young to have more time, not only to process this, but also to get the justice that we need in the legal system.
I'm really glad that we're just circling this theme of justice, because that's what it's about. I mean, the lies, the abuse, and then to just leave people hanging in the dust like that, having permanently changed their entire lives, just flipping everything upside down without any care for the long-term consequences or ramifications. It is unjust.
Absolutely.
Completely
And
clearly.
I'm just so grateful for this bill because, I mean, the thousands of children, the thousands of young men and women out there who have been through what I have, even if we detransition, even if we accept our God-given selves as the men and women we're made to be, there is no reversing the scars and the damage that's happened to our bodies. But this gives us hope going forward. And it'll protect a whole generation of children and the generations to come from the damage that we've been through.
Wow. Just thank you again for even sharing your insight into this issue. And Congressman, for your part, thank you for proposing this. I wish you Godspeed and all the best with getting this signed into law and moving it forward. And thank you both for your time today very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up next, we'll take things in a slightly different direction to a controversial new law in California that was recently passed by Governor Gavin Newsom. More details about what it means after the break.